Good afternoon, everybody. This is Courtney Coleman. I am going to make a quick video of the presentation that I gave last night regarding our trip to South Africa and send it out to everybody for those who could not make it and still want information, and even those who did come just in case you had some questions or forgot some of the information I gave. I'm going to try to go through it quicker than I did the first time so that you're not sitting here listening to me for an hour. But so if I miss anything and if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out and we can talk on the phone. We can set up a meeting. I can email you, whatever works best for you. So this is a video that we started with last night that I'm going to skip through today. It was just kind of a little intro showing a student from California talking about how she got to travel to Japan, and it was a chance for her to get outside of her comfort zone and how much she enjoyed doing that. So we are talking about South Africa. And this is really my dream trip. I have done multiple trips that I'll talk about, but this is the one that I am most excited about. And it was really important to me that we do South Africa, not just for the awesome nature part of it, and that is awesome, you know, to get to go on these safaris and see these animals and see the penguins and see the culture and all the things that are fun and enjoyable, but also to really tap into the history of South Africa, to explore not only the continent where mankind began, but specifically, you know, these areas that were colonized and really learn about the detrimental effects that colonization had not only then, but still have today. To talk about the hardships that people went through and for students to be able to draw parallels between American history and the history of a different country that went through similar but different racial inequalities and how everything has developed over time. It's really important to me that students see beyond the myopic experience that we have, you know, as Americans and learning American history, to really get to see how other people live, not only now, but back then. You know, how did they become the people they are today? And so that's one of the reasons that I am super psyched about South Africa. So if I have not met you, my name is Courtney Coleman. I have been teaching here at Norview for 12 years. Prior to that, I actually lived in the Netherlands where I taught English in Dutch schools. I have been doing travel with students for about 8 years now, and I have gone on 4 different trips with EF, which is the travel company we use. 2 of those trips have been domestic. They've been New York City, very drama oriented. And then the other 2 have been to Europe. The first trip that I went on, I was a chaperone for another teacher, and we did Germany, Poland, and the Czech Republic. That was a tour very centered on the Holocaust. So it was very emotional, very educational for the students. And then 2 years ago, 2 summers ago, I took about 30 kids to London, Paris, and Rome, along with a few other chaperones. And so that was very exciting. So this will be my 3rd international trip with students, but my first ever with students or without going to Africa. So in this hopefully quick video, what I'm going to talk about is basically why we travel, why it's life-changing, how it can possibly benefit your child, not just in what they'll learn, but what we can actually gain as far as credits for school from it. We'll talk a little bit about EF, why we've chosen them as the company to travel with, what we're going to do on the tour and experience, everything that's included in the price, and then finally we will talk about that price and how to enroll in. We only have a few slots still open, so how to get everybody in as quickly as possible if they are interested. So why travel? You know, I've always loved traveling. You know, I grew up with a military family. We traveled a lot within the country, but I never got to, you know, go overseas like some military families do. But like I said, I got the chance to move to the Netherlands, and while I was living there, I got to explore all over Europe, and it really awakened a love of different cultures with me. So I was very excited to get the opportunity to share that with students. All of the pictures on this screen are pictures that were taken during our 2022 trip to London, Paris, and Rome. We started planning that trip in 2019. We were supposed to travel in 2021. We got COVIDed, so we were delayed for a year and finally got to go in June 2022. And the kids had an absolute blast, not only with what they got to see and experience, but just the relationships and friendships that they built. They had these, parties before we kicked them out and made them go to their rooms for curfew, very strict on curfew. But they would get together in the evenings in hotel rooms and have, video game competitions and karaoke competitions, and just really developed friendships that I know some of them still 2 years later are very close to these students that they met while we were traveling as a group with Norview. So EF is the company we use. It stands for Education First. And I don't stick with them just out of tradition. Every year I tend to kind of shop around. I do look for price, versus value. But every time I've shopped around, I've ended up coming back to EF in the end. And a lot of that has to do with just how much of a safety net EF has developed for us and our kids while we're traveling. I love that they have offices all over the world. The blue dots on this map don't represent places that they send tours. They represent actual on the ground offices with staff that can jump in and help if there's a situation. They are very invested in the safety of the kids and helping to solve any issues. For example, when we did go to France a couple years ago, we had a student who was in a wheelchair. She could walk very short distances, but most of the time she needed to use our wheelchair. And we went to Versailles, which has very large cobblestone pathways, and her wheelchair actually broke. And that was a big deal. But we immediately were able to get on the phone with EF, and our tour director was working with the company to figure out how can we change the bus routes to minimize walking, how can we find a rental for when we moved on to Rome, which landmarks had wheelchairs that we could use. So it really made me feel better to know that they had people who 24/7 I could call up, and I'm not trying to get hold of somebody who's on, Virginia time while we're in Europe. They're right there in the same time zone and able to navigate the situation. We also had a child who came down with COVID while we were on that trip, and EF immediately jumped in. They had a plan in place. He actually came down with COVID 2 days before we left to go home. And so what happened is when it came time to go home, we left, we went, and one chaperone stayed behind with the student. And what EF did is they actually paid for the student's father to fly in from Virginia and relieve the chaperone, so the chaperone was able to go home. And then they covered all the, the hotel and the food and everything that they needed in order to quarantine until they met that requirement that we had at the time in 2022 to be able to travel home. So they had a plan in place and they executed it, and it was very seamless. Unfortunately, that student had to hang out in Rome for an extra week or so until he was healthy. But as far as the rest of us, we had one chaperone that was 1 day late getting home, and that was it. They were able to get everything set. And so that makes me feel good when I am taking other people's children. I have children. I have an 8-year-old and an 18-year-old, and I know what I would expect from somebody who is taking my child to a foreign country. And EF makes me feel comfortable doing that. I don't worry about what's going to happen because they have plans and they have people on the ground to help if we need it. And that's important to me. So again, and that's what I was just kind of saying, that EF is all about safety. One of the other things that EF is very stringent on is the safety of the area that we're traveling to. They use the State Department travel advisories. They keep up with what's going on in the countries. And if something happens where they think there's even the slightest bit of chance that we would not be safe traveling there, they're not going to let us go. They don't want that liability. And I actually saw that happen, not with one of my tours, but another teacher was supposed to go to the Galapagos Islands a few years ago. And in order to get there, you have to travel into Peru. I don't remember exactly what happened, but about 4, 5, 6 months before her trip, something was kicking off in Peru. There was civil unrest, And the company just called, the teacher and said, can't do it. Where else would you like to go? And so they help us, if that happens, or if God forbid something major like COVID happens, they are going to either find a different tour, delay the tour like I had to do, but they've got that flexibility, and they're not going to let us even risk an area that has something crazy going on. If there is an incident on the trip, if somebody gets sick, if somebody gets injured, they have plans, they cover everything to make sure that everybody is as healthy and taken care of as possible. We have a tour director that is with us. They are there the moment we get off the plane, and they do not leave our side until we get back on the plane to go home. They stay in the hotels with us. They are there for every visit, every tour, everything we do. And they're the ones who ultimately, if something goes awry, they're the ones stepping up and taking care of it. So I don't have to figure out how to, talk to people, in South Africa, and who do I need to call, and what do I need to get the right kind of money, or the right organization. They have all of that under control, which is really great to have. One of the cool things that EF does that I honestly don't have a lot of experience with, but I'm 100% willing to jump in and figure it out with your student if they want to pursue this, is that you can get credit for your travel. You can get 3 college credits by doing this course that relates to the trip. So there's some schoolwork that you would do before the trip. Then while you're on the trip, you're gathering that experience, and then afterwards, I believe you write a paper about what you learned, or whatever the question you were trying to answer was. And you can get those 3 college credits through Southampton University, I believe, is the online school, or Southern New Hampshire University. And they will get those credits, which you can then transfer to the college of your choice. This half high school credit is new, and it's something that I would have to get in touch with NPS and see if they will allow this to happen. But if that's something that someone is interested in, I will absolutely go to bat to try to make that half credit happen. But I don't have much experience with that one. But it's cool that's even an option. So what are we actually going to be doing? We're going to be going to South Africa for 11 days in June 2026. And so we're going to fly into Johannesburg. We'll stay there for a couple nights. Then we will take a bus up to the Kruger National Park area, stay there for a couple nights. That's our real safari nature-based area. Then we will fly down to Cape Town, where we will stay for 3 more nights, and then fly from Cape Town back home. So we're not only flying to Africa, we're flying within South Africa as well. So these are all of our days, and I'm going to go through it and show a couple pictures just from each day. I don't want to bog you down with too many details, but I wanted you to at least see these so you could look up those areas if you like as well. So day 1 and 2, it has down for flying to South Africa. That does not mean we are flying for 48 hours. It is an overnight flight, which means we'll probably land in South Africa morning their time. But they don't plan anything specific for that day, just in case there are delays or reroutings or things like that. So when we land in South Africa, whatever time we have left will be free. And they're really great about taking us into town. Do you want to visit this market? It's just kind of a restful day to get our feet on the ground, get over a little bit of that jet lag, but we're not traveling for 2 days by any means. These are just pictures from when we flew out of Norfolk in June 2022. We had about 30 people on this one, and yes, everyone will wear matching t-shirts because it's cute and it helps us all stay together in the airport. But everyone, as you can see, was super excited to go. Day 3 is when the actual guided events will start. We're going to start with a guided tour of Johannesburg and then visit the Apartheid Museum. And like I said, it's very important to me that we are experiencing the history of the area as well as the fun touristy stuff. So the kids are going to learn about, how apartheid developed, how does it compare to the Jim Crow era that we had here in the United States, how was it overcome, learn about Nelson Mandela and all the other people who fought for freedom during that time period in South Africa. On day 4, we're going to go to the cradle of humankind, and I just remembered that the next slide has an error where I put all these awesome pictures and then I forgot to actually spread them out so you can see them all. So I apologize for that. But the cradle of humankind is a place where we have some of the oldest fossils in existence. As we all know, mankind starts in Africa, and so as they migrated, down south to South Africa, we have some of the most complete fossils of that time period. As of this moment in September 24, there is flooding happening in some of the caves. So we're not 100% sure how deep into the caves we will get to go, but I'm hoping, it's a year and a half away. So my fingers are crossed that it will be dried out by then. We're also going to visit a museum called Constitution Hill. And this was a former prison that's now turned into a living museum. So again, students will get to experience what those people who were fighting for freedom were forced through, what life was like in that time period. And this is very much a living history museum rather than just walking around and looking at things on a wall. So very immersive, so they can see what life was really like. On day 5, we're going to go to Misty Mountain and the Grasstop Gorge, which is where we're going to really get into some awesome nature stuff. This is Misty Mountain, and one of the really cool things we're going to do, if you can see this video, is if you are daring and willing, of course nobody is ever required, but you can take this toboggan ride, which is over a mile down the mountain. And see everything as you go down, which I think is really cool. You can also see that bridge that we're going to walk across and just how absolutely gorgeous the scenery is. We actually will get to take an elevator from the top of the cliff down to the bottom of the gorge and really get to explore the forest that's down there. There's also, again, for those who are a little more daring, a zip line. There's one of those giant swings that seems like it's a bungee jump, but then it swings out over the forest. So a lot of really cool opportunities to see nature and experience it in different ways. And then that day is also going to be our first visit into Kruger National Park. This is the largest game reserve in South Africa. The park itself is the size of the country of Wales. So it is huge. And we are going to get up close and hopefully not personal with a lot of different animals. So this first evening will be just kind of an overview. But the next day is when we get to go on our all-day safari. And this is where we will really get as close as we can to the lions and the giraffes and the elephants and the zebras and hyenas and crocodiles, whatever else all they have in the park, which will be super exciting. On day 7, we're going to start with a morning bushwalk, which means everything we saw from the safety of the car the day before, we're going to get out of the car and walk. This is definitely, all of these trips are, you're doing a lot of walking. Usually factor about 10 to 12 miles a day. What's fantastic about going to South Africa in June is it's winter there, which does not mean like winter here. It's going to be 65 to 70 degrees every day, which is fantastic for what we're doing. We went to London, Paris, and Rome. It was about 100 degrees every day, and we were still walking those 10 to 12 miles. So this is going to be the perfect weather for these bushwalks to try to observe as much of these native animals as we can. We're then going to fly to Cape Town, where we are going to start by visiting Table Mountain. And you can see what an amazing, again, view that's going to be. We're going to get to see the sights by taking that skyline up to the top of the mountain, do some hiking, and really get to see an overall view of Cape Town. We will also go down into Cape Town, into the areas where Nelson Mandela lived. We're going to take a ferry over to Robben Island, which is the jail. that Nelson Mandela was imprisoned in, see where he actually stayed for all those years, and learn more again about how he not only survived in that time, but was able to continue to fight for his people and eventually become the first Black president of South Africa. And then day 9, we're finally going to go to the southernmost tip of South Africa, which means the only thing, but over the other side of the water is Antarctica, which means penguins. We will get to go to the penguin colonies, and that will be super cute to get to experience them in their natural habitat, rather than, seeing the sad penguins at the zoo. On that day with the penguins, we're also going to go to the Kirstenbosch Botanical Gardens, which is just massive. And again, getting to explore that nature that you can only find in Africa. On day 10, we're going to explore Cape Town some on our own. Then we are also going to be visiting the Langa Township. For most of the visit, to be honest, we're going to be in the wealthier areas, in the tourist areas. But I think it's important to also see, how the normal person is living in South Africa who's not there on vacation. And so by getting to go to the Langa Township, we're going to get to interact with people in their environment who are willing to welcome us and say, this is our life and how we live. We're going to get to go to a local community center and spend some time with the children there and hopefully bring them a little bit of joy in our visit while we're there, and give back a little bit before we leave. And then finally, we will fly home on, again, it'll be an overnight flight. So we'll arrive on the day 11, and everyone will be exhausted and jet lagged, but they will have had the time of their lives. And of course, the food. The food in South Africa is going to be amazing. And that's a lot in part due to that colonialism and those different cultures that are all going to mix together over time. So we will get to try some really amazing new food. The food's always awesome. So we are set to travel from June 8th to June 18th. That is our requested dates. However, because they can't, lock down flights that far in advance, they ask for a little bit of wiggle room, 3 days wiggle room on either end. So we could leave as early as June 5th. We could come back as late as June 21st. So it'll still be that 11 days, just not knowing exactly where. So about 2 to 3 months before the tour, we will get our final days, whether that's the 5th through the 15th, 8 through 18, 11 through 21. We just kind of make sure that's everyone knows that up front, so you don't think, okay, we're coming home on June 18th and we're going to leave for Disney World on June 19th, because there's a chance that we might bleed over a little bit. So what all is included in what you're paying for? The flights, obviously, and flying to Africa is expensive. That is a big part of the price. The hotels, everywhere we stay, is covered. All the breakfasts, all the dinners, and most of the lunches, especially the lunches when we're out in Kruger National Park and we're on the safaris and stuff. Some days lunch is kind of a whatever you want type thing, and the kids will, have about 10-15 bucks that they bring and spend on what they want. They always want to check out McDonald's every country we go to. So that sort of lunch is on our own, but some of the lunches, all the breakfasts, all the dinners are included. Our tour director, who will be with us from the moment we get off the plane to the moment we get back on the plane, all the transportation, expert local guides. That's a very cool thing, because we do get this tour guide. This tour guide is really knowledgeable about EF, the company, and how to best help us, but they may not be from South Africa. When we went to London, Paris, and Rome, our tour director was actually from Greece. So I think it's important to have those local guides. If I want the kids to learn about South Africa, I want them to learn about it from somebody who lives there. So we're going to have 5 different local guides who are going to come and teach us and take us around while we're there. And then any of the landmarks, attractions that we go to that are built in as part of the tour, the entrances, of course, are all covered, all the museums, the toboggan ride, that sort of stuff. The things that are not included are mostly things that would apply only to that student. Like obviously everyone's going to need a passport. At this moment, there are no special visas that are required for travel to South Africa, but if that ever changed, I would immediately let you know and we would take care of that. But as of right now, all you need is a passport that will not expire until at least 6 months after we come back. Baggage fees, that's only if you go beyond. What's included is a carry-on, a personal item, and a checked bag. I'm going to really push the kids to go for a carry-on. I have done 11 days in Europe and just a carry-on. So it's definitely doable, and that way you don't run the risk of your checked bag not arriving in Africa with you, which would be not fun. But it is included if they do want to check a bag. But if you decided you wanted to bring more than that, when we were in Europe, we had a bunch of adults who came with us who literally bought suitcases there because they had so many souvenirs that they bought. So of course, then you would be responsible for any of those baggage fees. Tips for the guides and the bus drivers and the tour directors is something that we will talk about. It is not included, but a lot of times we're able to fundraise for that. Usually comes out to like, about $100 a student. But we will, take care of that as we get closer to travel date and see if we can alleviate at least that through fundraising. And then any snacks they want, souvenirs, that sort of stuff, of course, they would pay out of their own pocket. EF does have some protection plans in place just to kind of give some peace of mind. Actually, the first one's called Peace of Mind. This one is the one that affects all of us. This is our guarantee that if something goes wrong with our trip, if South Africa is deemed unsafe because something has happened there, if God forbid there's another global pandemic that throws off our travel time, they're not going to leave us hanging. We may have to change where we're going. We may have to change the dates we're traveling if it's something like COVID, but they are going to figure it out for us. Because of COVID last time, we had to push off an entire year. But I think we only had 3 kids who decided to drop and not wait that year. Everyone else just went a little bit older, but still had a great time. Individual protections. The global travel protection is built in. I automatically add that to anyone who is traveling, and this will cover if something medical happens, if your baggage gets lost, there are protections. It's not 100% everything back because it kind of depends on when you cancel, and I'll show you that detail in a second. Because after a certain point, they start paying for the flight tickets. So you may not get back all your money, but you'll get back a lot of it. If you really want that protection that I can drop at any point and get every single penny back, you have the option to upgrade to that Global Travel Protection Plus. That would be a personal choice. I've never had a student choose to use that or have any issues with using the insurance that they do have, but that is, of course, something you are welcome to do. They do have a risk-free enrollment period. The deadline to enroll for this tour, and that doesn't mean like you absolutely can't enroll, but the deadline for the early enrollment discount is next Friday. So a week from today, September 27th. If you enroll by September 27th, you have 7 days to change your mind and get back every single penny you've paid, which really is just that $95 enrollment fee. So 7 days to say, never mind, I don't want to do this, and get that back. Even beyond that 7 days, though, you have up until a year prior to departure to get back everything except that $95 enrollment fee. So this is September 2024. If you enroll now and in May 2025, something happens, it's no longer feasible, you can cancel and get everything that you have paid back except for that $95. That will be possible until June 8th, 2025. Once we enter into that year, then you may not get everything back again, depending on how much they have already paid for tickets and things like that. But until June 2025, you can cancel and get everything back except that $95 enrollment fee. They do also have scholarships, and shockingly, I've never had any students apply for this scholarship, and I think I'm really going to push them to do so, because you can get $1,000 needs or merit-based scholarship, and so you can apply. You complete an application. You make a little video that talks about how will this tour change the way you think or feel about the world or act within it. And if you get chosen, you get $1,000 off of your tour price. So I am going to encourage, every single enrolled traveler to give it a shot. Why not? The other cool thing that EF has is these fundraising pages. Each student or each traveler is going to have an individual website that you can log into and talk about why you want to make this trip, why it's so important to you, and then you can send that link to anybody. And we all have 2 birthdays and 2 Christmases that are going to pass before we go on this trip. You can send that link to grandparents, aunts and uncles. I had one student who she got, well, 2 students, different trips, that each of them got their entire trips funded through their church. They were very close in their church community, stood up, talked about it, shared the link, and people donated. And if they donate to your page, that comes right off the top of your cost. It does not go through anybody else. It is straight to you. If it happens that you accidentally get overfunded, if people donate and you'd already paid off the thing, they're going to cut you a check for the overpayment. So they're not going to keep that extra money. So you don't have to worry about that. You could even use the link if you're, payment for babysitting or mowing lawns or whatever teenagers are doing in 2024. Just have them pay you by donating money to your trip. And if done smartly, it can take a lot off your cost. So, as I said, this is kind of everything that the tour package includes, everything we talked about doing on the tour. We have the flexible payment options, you have the fundraising page, you have the protection plan, you have that 24/7 safety and incident response team. If something happens, like I said, those 2 incidents I told you about are the worst that I've ever had happen on a trip. We had a wheelchair break and we had a kid get COVID in 2022, which isn't a shock to anybody. We've never had anything serious, thank goodness, happen on a tour. But it's good to know that there's protection if something does happen. And then we have that credit options if you want to pursue that. So the next slide is supposed to be me throwing up the price, but wanted to insert this and just acknowledge this is an expensive trip. It is. I acknowledge that. There's a couple reasons for that. It's Africa. Africa is going to be more expensive than traveling to Europe or South America, just right off the bat. Plus, in 2024, everything is so much more expensive, and I understand that. The trip that we did to London, Paris, and Rome that we started planning in 2019 and we went in 2022, that trip is now $2,000 more expensive than when we took it. So I understand that things have gotten a lot more expensive. That's why we start planning so far in advance, so that if you start those monthly payments now, hopefully it's not, so painful, and you'll be paid off and done a couple months before we go on the trip. We will try to do some group fundraising, but I cannot guarantee what we will raise. We can try to sell snacks downstairs to the athletes after school, things like that. But we could make a ton and we could make, nothing. I just have no way of knowing how that would pan out. But of course, the kicker here, the key point is going on a trip like this is amazing and life-changing and will be a chance of a lifetime for your students. So here's how to make it happen. When you enroll, there's going to be a $95 enrollment fee. That's what you would be paying today or whatever day that you sign up. After that, you have your payment options. You can do biweekly, which comes to $156 every 2 weeks, or $311 once a month. That all in all gets us to the price, which is $6,309. That includes the $200 early enrollment discount. I am also going to be offering 2 more scholarships. The quote unquote payment that teachers get for doing these, it's not payment, but we get these points with EF, and you can use these points to go on, trips with other adults and things like that. I don't do that. I travel with the student. So since I have these points built up, I actually used some points to help pay for some kids to go to Greece last year, and I have enough points left over that I can offer two $200 scholarships to two kids who are going to Africa. So once everyone is enrolled, I'll just kind of do a, wheel of fortune and land on two students, and I will donate those points to take $200 off the top of their bills. If you do not enroll by next Friday, that $200 early enrollment discount is gone, which is going to take it up to $6,500. And then we are going to see price increases as it gets closer and closer to the trip. So this is really the lowest price you can lock in right now. Adults are absolutely welcome to come. I love having adults come. We have had a blast with every time that we've had grown-ups come with us, especially after curfew and the kids are up for the night. It's great. It's a fantastic opportunity to travel with your family. There is a higher price for adults, so that is for anyone 21 and up. So obviously the monthly payments for that one would be a little bit more, but you are absolutely welcome to join us if you like. So as of this moment, we had 43 people who were interested, at least 43 students who were enrolled to come to the meeting last night or said, I can't come to the meeting, but can you send me information? I only have 12 guaranteed spots. The likelihood is I can go beyond 12. I wanted to start small though, so I didn't, get my hopes up too high. But right now I have myself and one other chaperone, so that is 12 guaranteed spots. 6 of those spots are already gone. So if you are interested in signing up, I would encourage you not to wait. Definitely wouldn't wait past next Friday so that you lose that discount. But jump in and get one of those spots. It's just the $95 to enroll today, and then your monthly payments would kick in after that. So this is the QR code. I know you guys are watching it on a computer, so it might not be so easy to get to the QR code, but that website above will take you right to our tour as well. You can also just go to eftours.com and it will ask you for the tour code. The tour code is that part that starts with 27, so it's 2798976XF. And that is how you enroll. You can call and talk to them too if you have questions for them. You can absolutely reach out to me with any questions. And like I said, we can talk or I can just respond in email. I'm sure there are things that people asked last night that I didn't think to talk about in this. You've already been listening to me for 37 minutes and I apologize. But all in all, that is my presentation on South Africa. And I hope that we will get to see some of your students traveling with us. And please let me know if you have any questions at all. Have a great day.